A very warm welcome to our second CINE Talk. My name is Anna Vermeeren and I'm the project manager of CINE. I work for Museum Nord in Nordland in northern Norway. Before I start, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the CINE project and cherry pick a few of the project outcomes that relate to today's topic, and that is digital possibilities for data collection and presentation. I will give you a small presentation. Here we go. The CINE project is a 3-year digital heritage project funded by the Northern Periphery and Arctic Programme. And we have 9 partners in Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Iceland, and Norway, and 10 associated partners. The partnership is mainly made up out of heritage institutions and innovation organizations, for example, such as museums and cultural centers, or universities and multimedia companies. We have developed our toolkits and guidelines around 4 case study sites. These are sites of historic interest where we tested different technologies to make heritage content more accessible to our different audiences. And from this learning, we have created simple tools and guidelines for people, maybe like you watching on Facebook Live at the moment, that you can use for your own means. Our project has a work package that is dedicated to data collection. And right from the start of the project, St. Andrews University created a website for us where we could put all the things that we would need later on, a repository with the content that then becomes something else. This was the start of CINEGate, but CINEGate has become much more. But I will leave it up to Alan and his team for this event today to talk further about CINEGate and what it can do. For each of our case studies, we wanted to create AR and VR models, and to populate them, we needed digitized objects. And for this, we mainly used photogrammetry. We tested different ways of doing photogrammetry, from just with a smartphone to also a more professional setup with multiple cameras and high quality software. We used these 3D digital objects on different platforms, in our models, but also in games and in online exhibitions. We used them in events and also on our social media. And here you can see a screenshot from a model of the fishing village of Helmsdale in 1890. This is on the northeast of Scotland. And I think this screenshot or this image really exemplifies the amount of data and the detailed knowledge that is used to actually create such models in a realistic and authentic way. To find your way through all the good things that we've made, and today I've only cherry-picked a really few ones, we have created a wayfinder for you. And I want to briefly show you how this works. I would now like to hand over to Alan Miller, who's lecturer at St Andrews University School of Computing. Alan has been a driving force and an innovator, I think, without whom the CINE project would have probably never happened. And Alan will share this event today. Thank you. Alan, you're muted.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Anna, and also for the overthrow of some of the digital work that has been going on. It's been great to be involved in the CINE project, and I hope we'll be doing similar things until we're both old and grey. Although you probably think of me as being in that category already. And it's great to be part of these workshops of these presentations, and I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to have a look at CINEGate and the potential that it has. But I think, you know, now is a great time for us to be discussing digital data, how it can be used, and also how people can interact with it through augmented reality and through virtual reality. I think that we've all experienced a huge degree of shock and of turmoil as a consequence of the COVID-19 outbreak. I was reading something by the UNESCO, which was saying that 95% of museums across the world have closed as a result of this, and that some are reopening, but something like 13% feel that they're not going to reopening. And I think, like with all of these shocks, whether they be pandemics or whether they be wars, they kind of jolt us out of the normal day-to-day existence that we find ourselves in, and put us in a position where we can imagine and think about, you know, what do we want to return to? Do we want to return to the normality that preceded, or do we want to create and invent our own or a new normality? And I think discussing the role that digital and technology can play with respect to heritage, we can think about it in those terms as well. We can think about, you know, when it comes to digital heritage, when it comes to the things that we're talking about today, what is the normality that we want to create after the COVID violence, and how can we kind of work towards that? And I think that, you know, one of the things that we've been trying to do in the CINE project is to create means of letting people access new ways of accessing data, of interpreting data, of imagining things, really recognizing that the past has, recognizing that the world has been changing anyway. The world has been changing in terms of the new technologies with new capabilities, virtual reality being one of those. And if we can kind of use virtual reality and augmented reality to connect with new generations. Heritage is all about communicating, you know, with people who are coming through, with new generations. And so if we can use new technologies to do that, that's great. And so one of the things that we've been doing within this project is kind of playing around with game-like technologies. And so this is just one example. I think, you know, in Norway, in Iceland, in Scotland, and in Ireland, we've looked at data, we've interpreted data, but out of that, we've also created digital reconstructions of what the past would have been like, and done so, and filled them with characters, filled them with objects, and made it so that people can explore these, whether it be inside of the museum, or whether it be at home, or whether it be over the internet. And I think this is, you know, one of the exciting things that, you know, instead of being able to access this information through what may be quite a dry archaeological report, we can now enter into a sort of living, interactive environment that will grab people's imagination. And this is just one example. That was a herring yard in Helmsdale.
Alan,
and yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Would you share the screen with us so that we can see the model?
I thought I had done that.
We see something else at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're sharing the wrong screen on the wrong window.
Thank you. In the flow. So yes, I can show you that, but share screen. Now I need to figure out how to go back. I'm sorry. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll show you that I'll show you the video at the end. So if you just hold my words, and at this point, I think it's probably the best thing to do is for me to end the share and to go over to Arvind Svensson, and we're going to hear about a really exciting project which is involved, amongst other things, putting digital data into the ice. Is this right? So, Arvind, if you feel free to, yeah, unmute your microphone and join them.
All right. Okay, you can hear me, I guess. Hi, my name is Øyvind Stensen. I'm the CEO and creative director of Hidden. I'm going to take you on a little bit of the journey we've been on. So we were thinking, when you stand somewhere in the world or walk around, just imagine all those things that have happened in that exact spot. The landscape binds us together across time and generations. We cross the same areas through generations, through time. We build things erode, disappear. What drama has happened in all the corners of the earth, and what mythology and amazing fantasy and tales are created by people in relation to the landscape, in relation to each other. To us, it was kind of obvious that the entire, and I'm guessing to a lot of you also, that the entire world is sort of a museum that is slowly revealing its secrets. It's a mystery being slowly uncovered. So why not try to make the actual world into the museum? When we started Hidden, we just started researching, talking to a lot of locals here and there. Here you see my partner Paul talking to some locals in Hemsedal, village area in Norway. We started going to libraries, researching the National Library in Norway, which has a lot of treasures. And we started making a concept. yeah, and we started working on some prototypes to see what we could actually do. This is a conceptual video. It's not real yet, but this is in Lofoten, Norway. And as you may know, we have lots of trolls in Norway, but that's not all of the content in Hidden. So Hidden was born. We know what we are good at. We are good at creating technology, creating artistic presentations. We are really into cultural heritage, gathering information, hearing stories. But of course, we can't do everything by ourselves. So we try to make Hidden like a network. Hidden is a bit crossover between, I guess, the cultural aspects of society, on which we depend on some government funding, subsidies, or grants and that sort of thing, and the private investors and commercial aspects. So what we want to do is to extract all the hidden resources that are just lying there unused in an area, or maybe it's used, but maybe it's not shown in an optimal way. So we try to extract that, we try to refine it, and to market it. And to do this, we need a network of resources. We try to connect local knowledge from academia, from historians, history buffs, experts in all these kinds of fields, in natural phenomena, scientists, anything that's of value to quite objective observer is interesting to put in Hidden. And we try to connect that with funds. It can come from government, can come from local commercial actors. It can it can be a mix of both, and of small private citizens who chip in as well. And we try to connect it with artists who can write and who can draw and make renderings of stuff, and cool technology. And of course, a vital part here is also the end user. Without the end user, it's the goal is always to have the end user. Without it, it's a bit futile to do all of it. Here you can see some of the categories we have in Hidden at the point at this current point: myths and folklore, history, landmarks, indigenous people, cultural heritage, artists and works, nature, popular culture, and campaigns. This may change over time, and some points on the map we have as a foundation can be in several categories. Here you see some of the map. Here you see some of the interface where we can add points on the map. It's very easy to use, so anyone can use this. You can add a preview text, what you see before you come to a point, because we use the map and geolocation. So in the application of the user themselves, they view something like this. Here, up to the left, you got the points on the map in different categories. When you click on them, you get the preview text, perhaps some preview graphics or some images. But once you get there within the geolocation, that's when it really opens up. Then you get maybe a lot more text. You can play audio, you can play video. Of course, you can view all sorts of images. And we also try to connect this with augmented reality technology. This was a big ambition for us from the start, and is now integrated in Hidden.
Den som leter godt, finner alltid en god historie. Nå samler Telia og Hidden norske sagn og eventyr i en app. Send inn din historie på hidden.no.
We got partners like Telia, who were really interested in this since it uses mobile technology in a great way and actually does something fruitful for society. And we got other partners as well. Riksantikvaren, University in Oslo, Teknisk Museum or Technical Museum in Oslo. And we are taking like the most quality of the content we gather and we lock it in the ice in Svalbard. So it's stored there. It can be stored for 1,000 years safely in some mine shafts, so like old mine shafts that have been reused for this purpose. They're locked inside with a film roll, old technology, but very hard to hack, and it's quite durable. And it's locked in this several containers in a low oxygen area, and it's very safe. It's a very safe place. And the company is called Pickle, which we use for this service. Here, I'm just while I'm talking, I'm just going to show you some of the AR content we are either working on. Well, this is done now. This mammoth. Mammoths do not exist anymore, but you can see them in AR with Hidden. We of course also can put in all sorts of photogrammetry content to show stuff while you're on the spot, to look around on the ceiling in this place, for instance, or put a model on your table when you get home. Like this is on the table, my table here at home. We have been based a lot with folklore, so there's a lot of trolls there. And forgive us, we are Norwegians. We are really into trolls there. We also got some sea serpents. Okay. Oh, this is outside the opera house in Oslo. Here's a sea serpent. You can go find it yourself. And we always try to base all of our content like this is based around like proper content. It has to be on a solid grounding. We don't want Hidden to be like a marketing channel or just turn into this on the, like you can market stuff through Hidden, but it has to be grounded in something with real value. Because like the end users come to Hidden to get an exciting experience, and they don't want to open the Hidden app if it's just going to be advertising. So everything is going to be based in things that has like intrinsic natural, cultural, or historical value. And this is super important for us to maintain. Here you got, this is not old folklore, but from the movie Askeladden, which we made on behalf of the Nordisk Film. Here's, well, this is backstage actually on the Telia commercial where we filmed this. And the film crew was took this quite sportily. So didn't get too scared. We also, we are working on some sort of face filters, so you can add stuff. Here you see Karin working in Hidden. She's trying on different gear, Viking helmet, and here's a troll face, and it actually tracks your face and matches up. So now she's laughing and she's playing around. There's so many possibilities when you combine the AR technology. You see a glitch. You combine the AR technology with a geolocation technology that tracks where you are on the map using GPS, and just using old, I guess old technology, good writing, good illustration, nice videos, audio in all sorts of types. Could be music, could be audio guides that trigger when you're on the spot. Could be all these sort of things. If you combine them, there's a lot you can do, and a lot of different stuff you can do in different combinations. You can make hikes and paths you follow along. You follow a story. You figure out different clues in different direction, different locations, and stuff like this. And we've only just started to get this kind of exciting content in Hidden. So we try to make some showcases ourselves, and we also encourage our customers to make it and to guide them along to make this sort of exciting content. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's my last slide, and I guess my time's probably up. So looking forward to the discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was fascinating, and I did like the trolls, so there was no need for forgiveness there. It does occur to me though, and Joe and Catherine may have opinions on this, but we have a huge monster in Loch Ness, referred to as the Loch Ness monster. I think maybe we should be looking at some sort of virtual representation of that.
We would love to do that. We have the technology.
Okay, well, why don't we have a little conversation and see if we can work out a way of bringing the Loch Ness monster back to life. There's quite a lot of photographic evidence and stuff that's been accumulated
That's cool.
over the years.
My time is up, but I'm just going to say we're surprised how many sea serpents there are in Norway. So also here, so many.
Okay. Okay, good. Catherine, I think you have some words for us and a presentation.
I do have some words. Thank you. Okay, is that my intro?
Mm.
Okay. All right.
Catherine's my colleague. She's from the University of St Andrews and has played a central role in the development of CINE. Working, I mean, you spent quite a lot of time with Scully in Iceland and also Scotland, and you've been part and parcel of all of the meetings, major national meetings that we've had. And I think you're going to talk about the thing that's closest to your heart, which is this whole photogrammetry process of creating digital representations of objects.
I am. Absolutely. So let me see if I can do this correctly and share the correct screen. Let's see.
Unlike some people.
I know, it's always the computer scientists that we just can't get it right. So let's see. So you should be seeing, let's see. Oh, no. Don't want to spoil it. All right. Great. Okay. So yes, I'm Catherine from the University of St Andrews, and I have been working on the CINE project since the beginning. I will be speaking to the life cycle of 3D models in the heritage sector and the challenges that arise from the process, and use the CINE project as a case study for proposed solutions. So I've been involved in multiple projects, including the CINE project, that use emergent technologies to empower communities and their museums in capacity building within the domain of digital heritage. And 3D collections are a large part of our research, but it also includes historical virtual reconstructions, virtual tours, mobile apps, immersive exhibits, and the frameworks to operate and manage them all. So you'll see some of those other areas mixed in what I present today. So as we mentioned before, Alan mentioned before, and if anyone watched last week's talk with Ed Rodley, you'll understand that I also have to address the elephant in the room, which is the lockdown due to COVID-19 was a chasm that split our world into pre and post-COVID. Specifically in the heritage sector, it was the catalyst that pushed museums to have some kind of active online presence or else become irrelevant. The CINE project has built resiliency within the associated partners and their connected communities by using the amassed digital content to connect with online audiences while locked down. Through live streamed events, we've been able to bring field experts into conversations about the digital collections, whether it's digital reconstructions, 3D models, virtual tours, or any combinations of those, to give additional historical or scientific or social background knowledge. With the limited indoor activity that we face, lockdown has given people an opportunity to document, explore the outdoors, their natural heritage and outdoor sites of cultural significance, which coincides with the CINE project's concept of museum without walls that goes beyond the physical walls of the museum and challenges what a traditional museum can be. We also acknowledge that museum staff or volunteers suddenly had a pressing need to become digital content creators during lockdown, which we wanted to help with. So with the help of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, Expo North, and the Cupido project, another project that we're involved in, we brought a free series of webinars online that included skills such as at-home photogrammetry and processing, creating virtual tours, video, photography, social media, and streaming live events. They were so popular, we're actually in the middle of our second series covering topics we didn't get to in the first go round. So, all that being said, I'm trying to emphasize that digital content and collections are incredibly important and valuable in order to connect with audiences, whether online or in the museum. And though unfortunate, I think that lockdown showed the heritage sector this. And before any other catastrophe were to happen, whether it's another closure of public life or, oh, that stopped, there we go, or indirectly from the climate crisis, or directly from conflict and diaspora, it's communities and their museums that are guardians of their heritage and should be actively experimenting with some form of digitization. And with this recognition, I'm hoping that it would be an increased interest in 3D digitization. If you go on to sketchfab.com, which I would say is the main 3D social archiving site, there's already an extensive cultural heritage and history section with lots of big names and not so big names that are posting through their 3D collections. You can make your 3D models downloadable. You can pick what kind of Creative Commons licenses you'd like, which they promote the public domain dedication to share data more openly. But Sketchfab isn't the end game for 3D models. You need to think of it more as YouTube with the video. You want audiences to see it, like it, share it, but you're still going to use it and archive that video for your use later on. So to create 3D models of an object, a larger site, or a building, you might think you would need expensive equipment to achieve this, which you certainly can use, and we do sometimes with laser scanners, structured light scanners, or drones. But it can also be done with a phone camera or a DSLR manual camera. So photogrammetry has a great low entry point where you can create stellar models with a camera you already have access to and with low cost photogrammetry setup. Through CINE, we've created guides that have helped with the step-by-step setup and process, links to external sources, and pre-COVID hosted workshops for hands-on practical experiences. We're big advocates of using the community as a skill set. So if there's interest within it, to capitalize on it and expand the museum's community connections. So processing can also seem a bit daunting and time consuming, but well, actually it can be. If you are able to use a method such as laser scanning, the associated software builds the model as you go. But in photogrammetry, you need to do a manual process with the photographs to create models. And you don't necessarily need the most robust gaming computer, but processing speed does relate to the amount of memory, CPU, and type of graphics card your computer has. So the whole process will be slower with a lower spec or a dated machine. This is again another instance for tapping into community skill sets if there's interest within the community. But to become resilient as an organization, you'll want to build as much capacity within the museum. So having staff trained in the process would do that. So it's not just a student or someone fleeting that then takes the information and moves on with them. In CINE, the heritage partners are teamed up with national technical partners to collaborate in the creation of 3D digital content and to help disseminate technical knowledge and skills to the heritage organization staff in their local communities. We've used and promoted open source or educational license software for an easier entry point into the digitization process, which our guides and ourselves are available to troubleshoot. So how do you store 3D models while making sure they're also sustainable and accessible? Excuse me. When building a 3D model, you have lots of files that either lead to the creation of the model or are needed to correctly display them. If you use a process such as laser scanning, there are multiple file types that are created as the scanner constructs the model. If you use photogrammetry, you'll have the original photos you took, the project file, and files that are exported that are needed to run the model. I think some of those most important things to consider when managing your 3D files are longevity, interoperability, and access. You want the work that you put into the creation of the model to be preserved, even if it has to be transferred to different software for future modifications or use. This may mean exporting the model as different file types to ensure support, whether it's turning a .obj file into a .glb or .gltp file. You also need to have files stored where you can always access them as an organization. So either within your own collection management system or an actively maintained project resource. Having a system to store your files and metadata in a sector standardized format is far more dependable than local folders on a personal or organizational computer. I'm sure if we've all dealt with someone's organizational system that we can't find anything in. And more collection management systems are building in capabilities for the storage of associated 3D files, but the issues begin when you want external public access or retrieving content that could directly feed into digital exhibits. In CINE, we developed an infrastructure for our digital project resource CineGate that is multifunctional and provides a toolkit for data management and digital interpretation for on-site and remote audience experiences. It allows data to be curated and reused within multiple use cases and supports the creation of mobile apps. The infrastructure is also open source. There is an open source web publishing platform, which we've extended for the previously mentioned uses, but also for online exhibitions, museum installations, virtual reality, digital mapping, and social media interfaces. So when your 3D models created, talking about 3D models, it has an archiving system that allows for their upload, display, interactivity, and reuse. It creates archive galleries with a search facility for accessing, engaging, and sharing 3D content. We use the IIIF framework as a standard implementation, which is open source, and the Universal Viewer and Universal Plugin for Omeka, which is our backend archiving system. This allows us not to rely on external web players that embed into websites such as Sketchfab. It then grants a little bit more insurance for continued support in case Sketchfab suddenly disappears overnight. So when you have a 3D model created and stored properly, then what? I mentioned Sketchfab, but like I said, it's wonderful, but not an end destination. 3D models are incredibly useful as scholarly resources, as they can be in multiple locations at any time, and a set of files or a link sent globally is better instead of shipping and insuring an object. And in this time of restricted travel and access to collections is an integral tool for research to continue. They're also an educational medium, so it's a way in which you can talk through a topic or narrative with something visual, interactive, and authentic that can be more emotive than text, similar to the actual object. Oh my goodness, sorry, just had a load of phone things. I don't believe that 3D representation of an object replaces the real thing, but instead enhances and supplements the original object while also creating greater accessibility. And when the process of making the 3D model can be collaborative with communities and heritage institutions, as well as academic or technical partners, so in the process of sharing and further researching the object. Because maybe until an exhibition was planned or individual interest was piqued, not much was known about the object or how it came to be in the collection. So through the digitization process can come another investigatory process that then creates an even greater depth of metadata to associate with the object. So beyond standing alone as an impactful research device, a 3D model can be an instrumental in engaging in a multitude of platforms. 3D objects can stand alone on a touchscreen interactive, a 3D printed version of an object that could be touch, but maybe not so much in post-COVID times, in video projections and VR settings, such as digital reconstructions or museum-like galleries, augmented reality mobile apps, or simply in images and videos. They can be accessed through mediums such as online galleries, VR headsets, touchscreen displays, or mobile apps. In all of these applications, 3D models can enhance the experience, the narrative, and the authenticity of the work. If an object has been digitized in a single point in time and placed back into the reconstruction, you'll learn about the original context of that object. So for example, this Sutherland chair made out of logwood is in the collections at Timespan in Helmsdale. Once it was digitized, we've placed it back into the reconstruction of the Longhouse at CINE, and now it can help us understand how this celebrated object in the museum's collection was a made for use, well-worn, necessary, everyday object. It has allowed the user experiencing the reconstruction to connect with the people long gone, but through the shared human experiences. And if the object didn't necessarily look as it does now back in the past as a digital file, we can manipulate it to appear as it once did, whether that is to repair broken pieces, reshape it from weathering, or to recolor it. This is the St. Mato stone, which is in the Perth Museum and Art Gallery in Scotland, and is a large picture standing stone with elaborately carved symbols and scenes. And with the guidance from museum historians and archaeologists, one of our students was able to recolor the stone with as accurate as we can academically assume colors that were available to the Picts at that time. So the CINE project will live on after its conclusion through its digital heritage creations. 3D models are not gimmicky or a fleeting fad. They are scholarly assets to a museum or heritage organization arsenal that should be curated and cared for, just like objects they represent. By becoming 3D models, they have allowed objects to be seen and interrogated outside their collection shelves and start new conversations on research practices, social justice, ethics, climate change, and learning. They've become sources for online audiences, while museums have been in lockdown, and their creation process a skill to invest in. The challenges presented with 3D models are there, but are not so much a blockade keeping museums out, but more of a creaky door that needs to be jostled to open cleanly. Community and museum resilience is the ultimate goal, but if there needs to be stepping stones in that process, joining a digitization project such as CINE or connecting with academic institutions should be part of a forward-thinking digital strategy. And the benefits certainly outweigh the questions that will need to be answered. New connections can be formed with communities, from informing on the objects to digitize, to new narratives collected, and to tapping into unknown digital skill sets that can in turn empower the museum. So digitized objects immortalize the original objects as a set point in time, preserving the local heritage and making it available globally to promote a unique culture. But heritage is always under threat, whether it's from the seen or unseen, and museums are there to safeguard and disseminate their importance to society. So, and 3D models then are another method in which to do this, but can also expand the museum's digital capacity. So, and that's me and my final slide. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
that's great, Catherine. We thank you so much for that introduction. It was I thought very interesting and also very succinctly clearly put, and I'm sure will be of interest to lots of people. There's a couple of questions that have come up on the chat, but we're gonna hold our horses on that until we've heard from Rohan from the National Trust for Scotland, and then we'll have questions for all the speakers together. So Rohan, feel free to
thanks, Alan.
contribution.
Yeah, sorry I was a bit late in, and having missed the technical test, this is a on-the-fly screen share of a PowerPoint, so we'll see how this goes. There we go. There we go. Great, I'll just brilliant. Yeah, so thanks very much. So as Alan said, yeah, my name's Rowan Armand. I'm the Collections Systems Manager for National Trust for Scotland, and I'll just be giving you a kind of quick overview and a bit of a legacy about a recent, very large inventory project which we conducted for our collections. So yeah, I'll take you through why Project Reveal was needed, what we did, what we got, and then the post-reveal world. Before I was dropping the joke of post-truth, but I think now it's probably post-COVID, so it'll be quite interesting to see how this changes where we go. But yeah, some of the projects and the future as we go forward. So why do we need it? Well, NTS has got over 100,000 individual collection items either displayed or stored in our properties. And historically, a lack of consistent numbering and accurate data made it impossible to meet the standards of a leading heritage organisation. So completing a large-scale inventory would mean a whole host of things. I've got a list of them here, but it would mean we could monitor locations, identify objects at risk of theft and damage, make it easy to report and trace them in case of such theft, and also would provide reliable, accessible object information and images to staff for use in interpretation, in room guides and marketing. And as importantly, in the long term, it will allow us to provide online public access to all or parts of the collection through our new NTS website, which is currently in development, or through partnership with other organisations. And you can kind of see, I've used rather bad examples, but this is the kind of record that was probably one of the worst type, but it's, it says chair, it's a pair of mahogany, and it's in Georgian House, which is quite a large house in central Edinburgh that we own. And as you can imagine, an organisation like National Trust for Scotland has a lot of chairs, so these records were not particularly of use. And then a good example of a rather lovely ID image with someone holding the object labelling, which is good, so you definitely know what it is, but other than that, the image is not very useful for any other purpose. So, an overview of the project. We looked at over 100,000 items. We probably created in excess of 20,000 new records. We took 206,000 photographs across 47 properties across the whole of Scotland. It was a team of 27 staff who were all taken on specifically for the project, and it ran between 2017 to 19. And cost £1.5 million. And every single item was inventoried, photographed, numbered, and given an accurate location on the database. This is our team. I was part of this team. I was the manager for the East region. You can see me here. Yeah, this is starting team. We had a lot of young professionals who were early in their career, so this was a really good opportunity for a lot of them to develop their skills and get hands-on with literally thousands of items. And the teams worked across the 4 regions over a period of between 6 months and 2.5 years. And each team had a couple of inventory officers and a professional photographer. And I'll just show you the regions that we covered. It gives you an idea of where our collections are placed, because although we are quite a large organization relative to maybe some of you, we have these 47 properties which range from tiny little houses in the middle of nowhere through to, you know, collection stores, so the range is quite varied. So this is the east. We've got 8 properties around Edinburgh and Fife. 11. We've got 8 around Glasgow, and then down in the southwest you can see they start to get a little bit more further out, and I don't know if you've ever driven down here, but this is surprisingly inaccessible. And then finally the obvious biggest area, the northeast and the northwest, and our collections are spread extremely widely over here. So the teams spent a lot of time staying away working on these for 4 or 5 days a week for up to 2 years. So it was quite an expansive challenge. And the process. So this was the nitty gritty of, and of course, every good project starts with a spreadsheet. So we exported all of our existing data into Excel, and then the teams are working on these on laptops while working in the properties, and then adding them into our database, into AdLib. Now you can see this is a couple of my team over at Curris, a lovely property in Fife, and this is where they were conducting their daily work. So every item had an object name, description, including dates, materials, dimensions, a basic condition check, current location, and then every single item got high quality photographs and also essentially an object number physically marked on the object. So a combination of all these 3 aspects means that hopefully in the long term we'll be able to continue identifying these items and where they are. And we worked in all sorts of locations. So this is our store in Edinburgh. It actually looks considerably better than this now, and then there's another project which I'll talk about in a moment, which was as a result of Project Reveal, through to very nice country houses like this, which is Georgian House in central Edinburgh. And we photographed everything. So if it was small enough, then we would put it on in a photography setup like this, or you've got one of our photographers, Brian, at the Hill House, photographing a very beautiful clock on the wall. So it all went into our database, regardless of quality. The most important thing was to capture everything that we have at this exact time. So a snapshot in time, really. And it all went into Portfolio, which is our dams. And this is really interesting because we realized that a major issue would be how were we going to put all these thousands of photographs into records. And I'm sure those of you that have worked on collections databases doing this sort of thing is very time consuming. So we actually worked with a company called Knowledge Integration, and they had a genius piece of middleware which would create an automatic link between Portfolio and AdLib. So as the photographers tagged each photograph, and when it was uploaded into Portfolio, the middleware would pick up this object number and automatically attach it. And not only would the image be visible in AdLib, but also information from the collections database now appears in Portfolio, which we use for lots of other purposes. So it includes things like copyright information and things like that. So it has much wider uses in general. And this is what a final perfect, in inverted commas, record looks like. You've got a lovely picture, lots of information. You've got dates, artist, materials, dimensions, condition checks, and everything like that. So this is a really good basic level record that we can then go on to do other things with. So outcomes, what were the outcomes of the project? Well, generally it was obviously a significant improvement in the amount and quality of the data in the collections database, you know, with those 100,000 plus records inventoried. 80,000 of those records now have high resolution images, and in fact multiple images for each one. And it resulted in portfolio becoming the main dams across the whole of the organisation, and prompted a full review of our collections IT infrastructure, because we realised that this had been made, piecemeal as the years go by. So now we've got a proper roadmap, including a new secure server and cloud storage to come. And really the project was part of a trust-wide move which is continuing now to decentralize control of collections away from Edinburgh and towards regional management of resources. And one example on AdLib itself has been that we created these two new fields, usage and significance, and these are all about whether an object or how an object can be used by property staff. So, for example, from the most valuable and significant items only being handled by a trained conservator, all the way through to pianos that can be played or chairs that can be sat on and repaired as needed. One of the outcome projects from this was going back to the this TNS store that I mentioned earlier, and its project review and rationalization. And basically, we have about 10% of our collections in store, and many of those are gifts, bequests or purchases that perhaps now don't meet the collections development policy. So after a review of provenance significance, quite a few of these going forward, and once they've been agreed, it's been agreed by senior management, they will be ethically disposed of. And by that, I mean either donated to another museum or institution, or they're sold at auctions, and the money from that would be specifically for collections, or donated or gifted to a good cause if none of the others were possible. However, there are quite a few items in the store which do meet the criteria and are original to properties, and so these are slowly being returned to the relevant properties for storage or display. And again, this will continue the work of Project Reveal, where regional teams can take possession of and manage their collections. I mean, it also created a framework for ethical disposal, which can be used going forward in the regions, just as Reveal created a framework for how to do an inventory project. Just got a couple more slides. Oh, and that's now what some of the storerooms look like. So we've basically got a view, an aim of getting rid of this central storage completely by 2021, and in order to put the collections out into the regions where they should be. Another outcome was the development of our internet server, and this is the kind of read-only part of our collections database that is used by property staff. And up until fairly recently, it was difficult for our staff across the regions to access this information. So we've improved and redesigned it, made it more easy to use. It made it easier to use, and by having much better data, it means that they can start to be a bit more self-serving with some of the tasks that they need to do on a day-to-day basis. So things like creating movement forms or doing location audits or condition surveys. They're still sending that information through to me, but as the only person who supports everyone on these 47 properties, it's obviously really good in many different ways for them to be able to be more self-sustaining. And finally, the collections online, the ultimate goal. Watch this space. So Project Reveal finished in 2019, and as yet our collections are not online. And I think that I know there was a perception that by doing an inventory project, records were automatically ready to go public. And as you know, it takes a lot more work to engage audiences than just object descriptions and pretty pictures, although obviously pretty pictures definitely help. So rather than making the whole database accessible on the website and just piling all the information out onto it, we're working across multiple departments try and create something that is more meaningful. And what this is, we don't quite know yet, but we're starting with audience research, and I think that seems like the right way to go. So thank you. I think that's all I've got to say on it. I've just run a bit over, but I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm slightly disappointed, obviously, that we weren't all in Norway sharing this together, but being in my sitting room is second best. But thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rohan. That was a fascinating talk about the your collections and the work in doing all of this imagery. So that was great. It would be really interesting to see what your audience research turns up and what you end up putting online. A few years ago, actually, we did some work with NTS, and as a result of that, we did have a set of 360 images and aerial photography and a little bit of photogrammetry relevant to I don't know, maybe a couple of dozen of your sites and places. And so if you're interested in
oh, that's worth knowing about. Yeah, I mean, it's like GIS. That's something that we're looking at the moment and trying to link that into our databases. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. But that's worth knowing about, actually. Thank you.
Okay, well, you know, ping us if you want any of this stuff. So thank you very much, Rohan. Thank you very much, Catherine, and thank you very much, Alind. And at this point, I think I'm right, and Anna, in saying that we can take some questions to the speakers before moving on to the kind of semi-structured discussion of the round table. So anybody in the Zoom meeting, really feel free to do that. Marianus has, this isn't so much a question as a point of information, Marianus and Ionadis has congratulated us for our work and also invites us to complete a expert survey questionnaire. So that is in the chat on Facebook, and I think we can kind of pick that up and maybe circulate it a bit more widely. And Catherine, on a similar vein, is pointing up a questionnaire that she's been doing as part of this with running a survey for the heritage sector in regards to digital tech post COVID. So I don't know if you invite comments on questionnaires and evaluation of heritage and the like from speakers.
Well, I'll say, please take my survey. That's my note. You
might say that, Catherine.
Good at pushing it. But it's just it's very similar strain of what I presented, but also informs research that we've recognized during lockdown and on also what we're assuming kind of the heritage sector will have to deal with post-COVID. So that kind of data is really integral knowledge to then inform on any research that we do. So yes, please, it's in the Facebook comments, and I'll make sure to survey for survey go in and do Mariano's survey.
And I think Mariano's he's just coming back saying that we need to cooperate here, and I think that would be great because you're writing up a small document on these sorts of matters, and I guess you would really appreciate getting access to
small document
stuff. So, PhD. Great. But other question. Sorry, do other speakers want to come in on questionnaires and feedback and the like? And I suppose it kind of, how are you going to do your audience survey thing, Rohan? I think that's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to be doing it yet, and I think it probably is a good job that we didn't start it pre-COVID, because, or it would be interesting to see the difference in terms of audience demands pre and post. But yeah, as I say, because we're working with other departments on that, but we will make sure that you know, that the collection stays central.
Okay. That's great. And there's another question from Ole. Have you, with 3D modeling, have you got new not known information about artifacts? And rephrasing the same question, new not known info, EKS, how was things used?
I'd probably punt that to anybody who's in the panel that's in the museum, Schooley or time span, or information that was maybe new and uncovered when we started to pull objects out to digitize them.
I mean, we, maybe not related to 3D, but we, in the process of doing an entire inventory project, we uncovered various secrets physically, which would never have been discovered. For example, a key that was stuck to the bottom of the inside of a ceramic jar with some chewing gum that turned out to open a piece of furniture that hadn't been opened for probably about 150 years. So,
Wow.
so that's perhaps
and
an
in Norway,
unexpected outcome.
In Norway, you discovered a lot of sea serpents. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Good.
I can come into this a bit, Alan.
Oh, great.
From Iceland.
Yeah, please do.
From the point of view with the photogrammetry of the skulls of the cemetery or the graveyard in the monastery here from the 16th century. And as you could see in the presentation from Catherine, there were some skulls from these graves that we have now in the photogrammetry and so accessible through Sketchfab, for example. And we haven't maybe not made some discoveries yet with it, but we have seen that it can be very, very useful to examine and compare, for example, skulls from other excavations in monasteries where there were hospitals in the medieval times. So in that way, you can use the photogrammetry image or the 3D image of the skull and compare it with another that you have maybe from Germany, another from Norway, and you can compare if they have been using the same methods to let blood or infection out from the skull. So we definitely see how practical it can be, and bring new information, because it's the access to these images that is really important for those who are doing the research.
I think I was just going to say as well, one thing that we've really found, especially post or mid-COVID of use, is that because one of the things that we asked the photographers to do was to photograph every item from every angle possible. It means that we've got an amazing resource, not only of a kind of point in time of each object, but in terms of things like hallmarks and everything like that, that we're actually able to fire out all of our images to our experts remotely, and they're able to continue their research without actually having to be on site with these items.
Yep, and that's like a big thing right now, obviously right now, but even with 3D models that pre-COVID, if they were to be part of, maybe you couldn't send the actual object as part of a traveling exhibition, then all of a sudden the 3D model can be entered as part of it, as opposed to trying to arrange travel and insurance for a model. And then now, when you have absolute, restrictions on certain things, then research can continue, because those models and same with photographs can be anywhere in the world in, you know, at any single point in time. So then I know that my work was able to continue because I have access to digital collections. And I'm sure, I mean, that's a majority of anybody who is using any kind of collections, if they have some kind of digital resource to go into too, that they can continue from home as well.
Oh, Alan, I think you're muted.
I am, yeah. Yes, I am. I was. We have another question from Timespan. Is that you, Jackie, at Timespan, or because you could sort of, anyway, is there a recognized universal protocol? Hi, Jackie, why don't you ask the question? Like, hello. So you had a question about standards and
yeah, it's just
and processes, and
yeah,
I think it's a great question.
Well, it's just been something that's it's just something we've been chatting about with all these online discussions, which have been really fruitful and fascinating. But so I work in a museum at Timespan, and we've been involved with yourselves with the digitization of archaeological sites, landscapes and objects. And what's kind of interesting to me from a kind of museum point of view, and also a protocol point of view, I'm just interested, is there an actual you know, a universal protocol or standards body that regulates the, you know, the digitization process? And I suppose I'm kind of thinking about here from an archaeological point of view, landscapes, sites, objects, that type of thing. And I suppose that type, I mean, we're in the museum sector, so we have a collection standard, we have a accreditation standard, and we're obliged to create policy for all different departments of our work. So I'm thinking as well, it might be useful for museums, as well as producing all that stuff and having that standard available, it's actually useful for us as well to actually reference our work. So any digital work that we produce as a research, a piece of research, like any other piece of research, I think it would be useful, and we are doing that, creating these research documents that are referencing our work, so people know where the evidence came from, as we would in any other referencing of any other report that's produced for an excavation, for example. So I just thought, have we thought about the information, so these documents that surround our digital work, that would be useful, therefore give it that universal standard and authenticity, and therefore other people can reference our work, our digital work as well. Maybe I'm getting confused with all this, but it just sounded interesting to develop it.
So yeah, I have some things to say on this, but before that, just anybody want to throw in on that, because I think it's a really fruitful area for discussion, and it's quite an open one.
Well, I'll say it in relation to 3D models, because I know Jackie and I have talked about this too, is that there isn't necessarily a standard. There is best practices that have been put out by large organizations like the National Trust and you know, different museums associations of what to expect, but not necessarily like a standard like Spectrum or something. And I was just reading an article that was published last year that was saying that they did a survey, and there really isn't a standard for 3D models and for, you know, the resources that go into it. Because when I say, you know, that they are scholarly resources, they are because of the work, and same with digital reconstructions, is of the work that has gone into them, and they should be evaluated as peer-reviewed, essentially, like journal articles are, with your resources backing it up, your explanation, everything that's gone into it, to make them credible as close digital representations of whether it's the past through archaeological data or even just the replication of the actual object in front of you, even that still, because through process, no matter what, through the processing, there is a bit that will have to be filled in. So you can't, we say it's digital representations. Yes, they're 3D models, but they're digital representations. I would never say that they're the actual model because there's still a bit of assumption that software has to do to fill it in. Visually, it might be totally fine, but there is that little bit of it's not quite, and you might have to guess. And same with if you were changing it to make it look like how it was in the past, it's making sure that that has some kind of trail to, show how you informed on those decisions. So I think it's very important, but I think it's ongoing because it's still getting its roots in the heritage sector as a real thing, as opposed to being kind of a entertainment value or a oh yeah, that's nice, that's cool, but what can you do with it? It's no, these are actual valuable resources that then can be referenced and used, years from now.
I can perhaps add, so in Hidden, we are maybe working a bit, leaning more towards the entertainment side of it. But it would be super useful to have some sort of universal protocol or database. And maybe even, a problem that we run into here is that the technology is advancing quite quickly. So with the photogrammetry, for instance, there are several detail levels you can represent an object in. So yeah, and Catherine knows more about this than I do, but from our experience, we can do some sort of photogrammetry, and also we've seen amazing work also, which is incredibly detailed, to the level that you can't really see that it's not a 3D model, that it's a 3D model. But of course, you can't run this on just a mobile. You can't represent it in 3D on a mobile. So the technology here is coming along. I think maybe I'm guessing a protocol and kind of universal database might be something that's coming. I think it's maybe just a little bit early. Someone should probably start doing it. Can we get that kind of global cooperation between institutions? That would be super exciting. And for us as a quite commercial enterprise, of course, we don't have the internal resources to do that kind of curation on stuff. So we are totally dependent on cooperating with cultural institutions, expert in history, archaeologists, museums, etc. And it would be super handy for everyone to know what they're seeing and to also get an impression on, is this actual a scientifically sufficient representation of the thing I'm seeing, or is this kind of an entertainment version that runs on my mobile for fun? That would be nice also. So I'm guessing maybe if you're going to start now, you would probably have several tier of quality that you separate things into. Some are super high quality, and some are kind of looks like it, but it's really not. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that, it's interesting question, but I think that there are some answers. So to the London Charter and Sevilla Principles, there's kind of sort of quite widespread consensus around them as ways of doing and representing virtual archaeology. They're quite high level things, so there's not quite, there's a level of kind of interpretation. Okay, so we need to involve lots of different disciplines in doing virtual archaeology. So, but then actually, how do you go about doing that? But there is, those do exist and have existed for some time, and are good reference points for doing this sort of work. And then Europeana is a major European initiative, which has been around for a while. and has over 50 million, huge numbers of things that are in it, and a very significant part of that project has been developing metadata. And the problem is that every institution has its own metadata system. I'm sure the NTS has it, and it's not the same as the Historic Environment Scotland, and so on. But so part of the work of Europeana has been to develop ways of translating from one metadata system into other metadata systems, so they kind of provide an overall one. And the work that we've done in this project over the last 3 years has, to a large extent, focused on developing metadata which is standard compliant with internet standards. For instance, the Dublin Metacore initiative, which is very well founded, open standards based thing, which enables you to construct descriptors for different types of objects, and we've used that to construct descriptors for objects, for sites, and for other things, and also built into that a way of translating from that into the Europeana metadata thing. So I think that there has been quite a lot of good work that has been going on in this area, and certainly if you put something into CINE, then from that we can get it the correct metadata for Europeana and the like. And I suppose the final thing is the EU has this repository called Zenoda, and so any 3D artifact you can upload into Zenoda, and in so doing, you can create a DOI, digital object identifier, which means that it can then be uniquely identified and accessed on the internet. And as a result of that, then when you're writing your scholarly paper, you can reference the digital artifact, either whether it be a reconstruction or a scan or any of those things. And again, anything you upload into CINE, you can generate a DOI from it, and you can also just press a button and upload it into Zenoda, which would then mean that those objects and artifacts can be referenced in academic and other papers. I mean, there's still a lot to be done. I mean, apart from anything else, how do you how do you let people know the level of authenticity just kind of by looking at it and so on? But it's not a completely blank field at the moment, I don't think. And I think CINE's done quite a lot of work on in this area, which is kind of tried to be compatible with Europeana and the Dublin Metacore initiative and things like that.
Alan, this is really useful, I think, for museums to know these things. Coming from a museum background as well, I'm often thinking about data storage. And you're currently promoting to put things on specific services, hosts, servers. But what really is safe? I mean, Owen was talking about putting data into the ice, and maybe in 1,000 years, somebody comes and looks at it and sees that as the reality of 2020. My question there would be, how do we communicate with people in 1,000 years? Do we just assume that they will be able to read the data that we're putting there? I assume that you're also putting very basic technology there to read the stuff. But maybe more on that's a bit of a conceptual problem, but more on a very practical level. As museums, what is safe? We know about how to temperate our rooms. We know about sort of basic security, but what should we do in terms of keeping our data safe?
I can, so quick answer for me, just also to clear up what we're doing in the ice. So we're storing it there. It can potentially be stored there for 1,000 years, is what they say, maybe longer. But and the point isn't that someone maybe is supposed to read it in 1,000 years, but it is more like a safety precaution. So that we actually store cultural heritage in a way that if anything happens, This is a neighbor of the seed vault. Maybe you know about it on Svalbard. This is a little bit similar actually. So we just want to keep it safe. It's just for safekeeping mostly. I mean, we have it in our databases here as well. They'll probably not disappear very quickly. So it's like an extra safety precaution, I would call it. And when it comes to digital storage, I think the basic rule is that all the digital formats we usually are familiar with are horrible for future storage, like on CDs or something, on hard drives. That's going to be gone in I don't know, 100 years. They're going to rust, and so digital formats not safe in general. And in Svalbard, it's Pickle, the company, is still storing these things on film roll, as I mentioned earlier. So it's an old technology. You could play it through a film player, or like read it through some similar technology. It's durable, and you can't really hack it, which is also a bit important. So digital storage also vulnerable for hacking. So yeah, I'm not an expert in this field, but I know there are a lot of warnings out there that we shouldn't just think that digital storage is safe, like a lot of people seem to think.
Yeah, that's great. Does anybody any ideas about how we can make the storage safe? Or maybe we can't make it safe, but can we make it safer?
Well, you can do this. What we're doing, you can always store it in that kind of format, but it's not really accessible then. You have to maybe differentiate between what's accessible to the end user or like end visitor or audience, and what is like stored for keeping, for safekeeping. I think that might be two different areas. As long as the people run the databases we use and rent, of course, that's quite safe, right? But it is dependent on some giant corporations, etc. I would really love some government, or maybe even like world, like United Nations or something, to like, or UNESCO or something, to have some sort of system for safekeeping. So we're not dependent on Amazon or Google and these kind of companies.
But there are. I mean, so you're really expressing a preference there for open systems against proprietary systems. Am I right?
Sure, open, but also like maybe it has two sides. One is accessible, and one is like for safekeeping, not hackable.
There's always going to be a trade-off, though, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
you can make a computer safe by unplugging it from the internet, but
also like making it open is a security measure in itself, right? Because then you can see what happens with the things.
Yeah,
you can use new technology like blockchain or something probably to safekeep also.
Okay. Yeah, that's great for that. So, I mean, other things. So this was about data management and accessibility and preservation. So they seem to be areas that are very important for us all at the moment, I think. I personally, I thought the accessibility issue was one, you know, of a lot of interest with the COVID thing, because I mean, we realized we had like terabytes of images and stuff that we'd been meaning to put up for ages and so on, and kind of felt that with the sort of closure of the museum sector, it became really important that all of the digital resources that kind of existed were made accessible, because there's no other way of getting access to heritage. Did other people have a similar thing that they kind of like felt, well, okay, now we need to do something about these digital files that have been lying around on my desktop or something?
In some ways, we definitely did have that feeling, but from a practical point of view, because most of our organisation was furloughed, it actually meant that capacity-wise we couldn't do anything. But I think it's really true, and I think it's changed the landscape long term for how people do want to access these sorts of things. So hopefully it should be at the forefront of people's minds. And as you say, we could have put, I mean, technically we could have put everything online, and we chose not to, and it'll be interesting to see if that was the right decision, because, you know, we do have people saying, project reveal, what have you revealed? We haven't seen anything, which having been involved in it is sometimes funny to hear, but I'm hoping that in the long term it will be okay.
Okay, yeah, that's great. But I think that when we were talking about this seminar, there was talk about COVID causing a rush to digitization and a rush to putting things online. Is there a danger that we do, you know, it is more haste and less speed, and that we're in danger of making a whole bunch of mistakes, that we're going to, you know, we really wanted to do stuff because of the COVID thing, but then because we were in a rush, we made a lot of mistakes. Is that something that we feel is going to happen, or are we pre-warned? Can we do the digitization and getting it online well? What are the things that we should avoid?
I mean, I'll say that just from the museums that we worked with during lockdown, it seems to be eagerness, but not rushing, more of acknowledging the steps that they do need to take, and the skills that they have to learn and the steps that they have to do, which is, you know, a nice evidence of knowing that, you know, you have to have some kind of strategy to something, as opposed to, you know, having loads of images suddenly uploaded onto Facebook albums and then that's it. To know that there is certain standards and making sure to do it right, so then people actually would like to see it and interact with it and do something with it.
Yeah, I think it actually gave us the opportunity, because nothing was really happening. It gave us the opportunity to stop and look at what we already had and assess the quality, assess what we didn't need, and go through things like I spent probably 5 months doing an upgrade of our collections database, and we definitely wouldn't have had time to do that in a normal situation. So it's kind of allowed us to do something which we probably always should have done, but didn't have the capacity to do. So
I think that we're kind of coming towards the end of this seminar, and it's been great having everybody here. I wanted to just ask a little bit about, has anybody got something that they want to give everybody a chance to have a closing word, so we don't just go, right, it's the end. But so if there's things that you want to say, then now's an opportunity to just go around and to say that. But perhaps particular focus on, you know, what do you really see as being the future in terms of the way in which people will interact with our objects and our collections? You know, if we kind of like soar into the future in the next 5 to 10 years, right, how would we, I mean, I'm not really asking you to imagine a dystopian future, which I enjoy watching on TV a lot, but it's more like, what's the aspiration here? How would we like it to turn out? Might be a nice way to kind of finish off.
I can start if you want, because I haven't said anything yet.
Please do.
Just in terms of, I think, I mean, and I won't speak from the point of view of my own museum, but a lot of the work that we've done in CINE is working with communities. It's just working with people, you know, living in Donegal. And if you want to go 5 or 10 years into the future, I think it's about them being able to share their history and heritage. Certainly through the 2 case studies that we've done, we've kind of revealed or shown, it's literally the shoebox under the bed type of material, you know, the photographs, the artifacts, the sites, the hidden sites. And I think that I certainly, from my perspective and with working with communities, that's what I'd like to see, is their ability to be able to do that enhanced and increased, and that knowledge and that kind of training, because they, as well as us, they are the guardians, they're the custodians of the heritage. So I think that's where I would like to see us in 5 or 10 years time.
Yeah, that's I think that's a great aspiration, actually. Yeah, that's super.
I can continue.
Oh, go on then.
Yeah, just take the word from Judith there, from Donegal. I hopefully, well, I hope that in the future and hopefully just in the near future, this access to all this digital heritage will be much more open. So for example, when we are doing a project like the Hidden there in Norway, we wouldn't need actually to make a special project about it. We would just have the access to all this geolocated digital heritage wherever we go, just like we are using the Google Maps now and having the information about the places. Then we would also have the cultural heritage and history about the places. So that's where I'm hoping that we are heading with the digital heritage.
I think we might be. I think we might get there. I don't know. What do you think, Arvid?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. That's kind of what we're trying to do. So, I mean, I guess my final appeal here is just for everyone who has any. I mean, already people here in this meeting and in this talk have so much exciting and great content. In Hidden, we are totally dependent on cooperating, and I'm not a big fan of silos. I do think it's a problem with like commercial investments, that you incentivize putting stuff in silos, because you have to cater to kind of the owners. But if we want to do what we're trying to do, it's I think what we're all trying to do, cooperation is so vital. So I really appreciate conferences like this, and I would just appeal to all of you to get in touch with Hidden. We're launching an international website very soon on hidden.digital. You can go to hidden.no, which is a Norwegian site up and running already, and just contact us. In our app, it's very easy to link to external content. So we can put stuff on our map very easily, it's very cheap. We can give you access to do it. And then we can link to your websites, to your artifacts, or to your just custom URL website addresses. So, and we would love all kinds of content, so all kinds of cooperation with people who try to do a little bit similar things, and with experts like you guys are. We would love to just get content, and to give you perhaps access and stuff like this. So just get in touch with us and we can see what we can do. And what we are, so I mean, we have several aspects. We got our editors, and we got our technology people, and we got our storytelling and like creative people. So we can also maybe help you and spar about ideas to make content more accessible and more entertaining for end users, don't you?
Okay, but yeah, thank you so much for that. And I'm going to, Rohan, have you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that our aim is to open up our collections more, using digital content as a way of supporting that, and get away from the kind of stuffy National Trust country house view that I think probably quite a lot of people have, and create these kind of meaningful experiences for people that they'll remember.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong aspiration. Can I pick on you, Jaroslav? Just because, like, from a curatorial perspective, do you think we're all mad, or
No,
is there stuff here that?
so.
I mean, I know I am. So like, everybody thinks I'm a little bit mad. I probably am. But anyway, Jaroslav.
Well, I think in the future, we've already seen this with our archives and paper archives, that process that had started for like 20 years ago. And nowadays, there are a lot of scientists around the world who are using archive materials from their home. And we've seen that it really boosted for some topics, the easy access, boosted the research. So probably something like that will happen also for other type of stuff that we have.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very insightful. Anna, do you have a last thing you want to say? Oh, I mean, you're gonna say right at the end, though, aren't you? But on this,
I think we should wrap up. We're a little bit over time, and it would be good to. Is there any last words you want to have, Alan?
Well, what I was going to say was Catherine.
I'll have a last word.
Yeah, you have a last word. The numbers have been holding up quite well on Facebook. I've been looking at them, so people haven't been drifting away. But yeah, I agree, Anna. Let's finish it.
So I would just just take a bit of what everybody said, of like building up resiliency within your museum by reaching out and using the community, because that is who you are really serving and who it is for. And they have so much wealth of information, whether it's, narratives, heritage, but also skills. And I think in 5 years' time, 5-10 years' time, if you can then see, as opposed to just a linear going out of the museum to the community, but in 5 years having it also coming them back into the museum. So having not just one direction of information going out of the museum, is having that come back in and having the community then inform and implement and do different things inside the museum, and then also democratize so many skill sets. Like, I know that I'm an expert and a technical partner, but in the future you want to have the trickle down effect that people have taught one another and museums have taught one another. So I would like to be irrelevant. I don't want to be a silo. We're academic, and so we're absolutely thrilled to teach. It's when, like you're saying, Ivan, like having a company and that holds all that information, then you have to go to that company to try to access that information, break down the barriers, make sure that the museum is sustainable in its own right, and then sustains and empowers the community.
Thank you. Anna.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Alan for sharing this event, and also to Joe for doing some technical work in the background. That brings me to thanking our speakers, Irvin, Rowan, and Catherine. It's been really interesting to listen to you. And thanks to the panel, mainly CINE partners, to come in to share some more thoughts. It's been a great event, but what would be an event with an audience? So thanks to our Facebook audience for listening and watching live. This is recorded, so you can go back anytime, and you can also share this event with your friends. But there is more to come. So please join us again next week, exactly the same time. We will have another CINE talk, this time on the topic, what is successful co-production? And Judith McCarthy was in here already. She will be talking about cultures of co-production. We also have invited speakers Dominique Bouchard talking about the reinterpretation of Stonehenge, and Sarah Smed from the Danish Welfare Museum sharing experiences on co-producing her museum. So next talk will be hosted by Ulster University, and I really hope to see you all there again next week. Thanks for watching. and we hope to see you very soon again. Goodbye from us today.